Welcome to Soulful Latte podcast, a weekly conversation between two sisters to help us and our virtual friends online, like yourselves, grow in life and in faith. We're your hosts. I am Qudsiyah.
And I am Samia. Welcome to episode 3. This episode is about self-worthiness, something that we all struggle with at one point in time. And before recording this episode, I did a little bit of a basic search for the definition of self-worth. And it said that it is the sense of one's own value or worth as a person. And it can also be synonym for self-esteem and self-respect. This actually topic is a little bit more close to home for me because I'm coming from a Pakistani culture. In our culture, I see a lot of struggle, especially with women, about self-worth because of the society that I guess we grew up in. So there's a big idea of who am I? Am I defined by my parents? Am I defined by my peers, my husbands, my in-laws? So many things come into play. And so I'm really excited to talk about this topic and have a conversation with you, Qudsiyah, about it. What do you think self-worth is to you?
This really hits home for me as well because I can remember when I was struggling with it and still do sometimes. The way I look at it is that self-worth is knowing that Allah has created me in a way that is originally good. And I have strengths and weaknesses. With weaknesses, I have the potential to overcome them and be a better person. So for me, when I have a sense of self-worth, my weaknesses are no longer something that I dwell on and are no longer a weight that bring me down, but rather become an area for me to grow in.
This is so important, I think, because we need to understand that our self-worth is not associated with a human being, but it is associated with Allah, as you said. And I totally agree with that we are created in a very specific way to serve our own specific surroundings. For example, for this podcast, I bring my set of skills and you bring your set of skills. And if we both were, sharing the same skill, then I think we won't be able to complete and balance each other out. And obviously in our faith, we have this idea of balance. Everything is balanced. So I think it is crucial to know that I am also balanced. I'm created in a way where everything makes sense in a bigger picture, and I just need to trust Allah in that.
Definitely, and also trust myself because Allah has created me in such a unique way where He's favored me. Right. And this is actually a reflection on the verse that we found before. It's verse 70 from chapter 17, and it says, "Indeed, we honored the progeny of Adam and carried them across land and sea and provided them with good things for their sustenance and exalted them above many of our creatures."
Every time I hear this phrase, I am just blown away by the word carried them across land. And obviously, I think the imagery is about, a ship carrying you over the ocean, and it kind of takes you all over the place. And I am just amazed, like Allah carries us. The idea of carrying is that we are completely taken care of. Nothing else can mess with us because Allah is taking care of us, and we're honored, and Allah carries us. Alhamdulillah, that's just beautiful.
That is so beautiful. Just to think that you're being carried by Allah. He has provided us with good things for our sustenance and exalted us above many of the creatures. That really enhances my peace of heart, honestly, because I just think, subhanAllah, I'm taken care of. I'm not broken, or there's nothing about me that is not good enough because Allah has said that human beings are the best of creations and He's exalted them above many. It's just blowing my mind.
I really love what you said about good enough because that's something that we all struggle with so much. Are we enough for this? Actually, I'm currently listening to the Michelle Obama book, Becoming. And she actually talks about it. That's the theme that she carried. I'm all like, I don't know, not even halfway through yet. But she struggled with that as well. Like, am I enough for this? Like, she talks about her piano lessons and all those things. So yeah, this idea that am I enough at this point? And we just have to say that, yes, I am exactly enough. I'm exactly who I need to be for this right now.
I think, yes, a big part of lack of self-worth is feeling like we're not good enough. And a part of that is also comparison. A very big part of it is comparison.
Yes. That's very even big in the social media world, especially because we're constantly in the state of comparison.
And it's really difficult with all of the noise to tune out everything else so that you can hear yourself.
In the social media space, we use the word comparing a lot, that we're comparing each other. And I think sometimes the idea taken is into a very superficial sense, that, you know, she has a nice couch, I want to have a nice couch. I mean, there is a level of comparison there, but fine. But it is also in the spirituality sense, because there's some people who have, you know, very specific Instagram accounts where they're only sharing the spirituality, they're only sharing the Quran journey, their Hadith journey, their whatever journey. And it is so difficult to not get caught up in oh, look at that, you know, she has this life and she's doing this, you know, why don't I do that? Like, I think this is a little bit of an unhealthy approach, because you're doing the best you can. Obviously we can do more, but we're doing the best we can according to what circumstances I have, you know. And then I can be like, oh, I can also do this, or this is just way beyond my reach right now. And that balance in thinking, I think, has to be there to survive this little social media insanity comparison stuff.
Yes. Actually, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were speaking about how it's easy to say that social media is a place where people highlight their best moments. And that's easy for us to say, but in the actuality of where you're feeling low and you end up comparing yourself, it's not often, yeah, she has a couch, I don't. It's also, you're right, it's about even a sense of well-being. They're happier, or they have more contentment, or they have more faith, or they have so much space to make room for spirituality, and I don't. It's always someone has something and I don't, or someone is something and I'm not. But you're so right to know that Allah has created us exactly the way that we are. And what's really important for me is that I have the potential to be better. So whatever I've been given, I have the potential to be better, and it's okay to be inspired by people. It's okay to use social media as inspiration and use people that you connect with for inspiration to better yourself. What are some things that you saw yourself struggling with in terms of self-worth?
I actually wrote a blog post about this probably a year or so ago, because I came to the States when I was 11, and I came to, you come into a new environment. People spoke Spanish, not English, which really bothered me in the beginning, where I was, and I was like, what is up with this? So I had this entire cultural shock in a way that it negatively impacted my mental health. I remember feeling that I don't want to look like I'm an outsider. I did not want to look desi. I did not want people to see me from far away and be like, oh yeah, look, that's a desi girl right there. And I hated it. And I remember having a conversations with my sisters or whatever, do I look desi, and that is so awful. Because, now that I look back at it, I know I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be. And what's wrong with looking like a desi person? But obviously a lot of things come into play with colonialism and all that, regardless. But yeah, so that's what I struggled with for years, that I just did not fit in. I didn't look like everyone else did. And that was very problematic.
Yeah. It almost makes you not appreciate yourself and what you come from and how Allah has created you.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
SubhanAllah. It was quite similar for me in the sense that I think I just didn't know myself enough, because there's a lot of shame in our culture. There's a lot of expectations put on us. And I'll speak for myself in saying that I don't think I discovered as much of myself. This is when I would struggle with self-worth, because I didn't know who I was to know what I had and how I could use that. So it was always about, oh, they can make such good decisions, I struggle with decisions. Or they're doing so much good with their life, but I'm confused about what I want to do. It was more in that sense for me. So what would you say inspired you to have that self-worth and to be at peace with where you were?
A lot had to do with the fact that I hit an age of my life where I just stopped caring about others' opinions and views. And I think a lot had to do with the fact that I started wearing hijab. That was me taking a stand for myself and saying, you know what? I am a believer, I'm a Muslim, and I have no problem looking like one, And so I think that was a shift that took me on this path of self-acceptance. That it's okay to be different, it's okay to look that way, because that's who I am, and I'm proud to be it. And I think, yeah, age has a lot of factor. I really believe in, I don't know, there's no scientific evidence for this, and I'm probably wrong. I don't know. But I think when you reach the age of 30s, you just stop caring. There's this idea that, you know, even the older people, I forgot where this was. I was talking to a lady, she was very much older, you know, and she just said something to me really weird, and she didn't care. And I was like, you don't care about what I think about that statement. You know, you don't care about what I think about you at this point. So there's a point where you reach where you're like, I just don't care. I am who I am. If I'm going to wear matching socks or not matching socks, it doesn't matter, you know? So maybe, you know, all of that came into play for me. Just this idea that self-worth increased, I think, for, you know, because of my spirituality and my faith. That really helped me. My faith was the propelling factor, and I really believe in that.
SubhanAllah. A journey from shame to acceptance through faith. That's quite beautiful, yeah.
Yeah.
Reflecting on that, I would say for me, it was really knowing about myself and knowing that it wasn't just me struggling. I feel like I didn't know it was not just me. I didn't know all of us struggle with this to a certain extent on different levels. So when I came to realize that actually it's not just me, and we all have our things, and that's okay, because I'm allowed to make mistakes, and I'm allowed to be weak at some things because I have the potential. Allah's made me strong enough and given me the potential to overcome that and be better at that. I think that was the biggest thing for me. And also everything Brene Brown, actually, really, really, really.
Oh my goodness, how can I
helped
forget
me.
about her?
Yeah, she has some
Yes.
very beneficial resources about shame, acceptance. I related to everything. All of her books, all of her talks. The book specifically really, really helped me give permission to myself to be myself. And also know that that's okay. I can give myself the permission to make mistakes and learn from them and grow from them. It's okay.
I think we, you know, both of our experiences, not that we can look back and we can understand. Obviously, that, you know, in that, I'm sure there's some other things we're struggling with as well right now in this realm of self-worth, whatever. But looking back at it, what do you think happens when we don't have self-worth?
I would say we give into things that are harmful for us. We allow ourselves to be mistreated and also feel like we're not good enough or doing it because he, she, or they said so. I think it's also when we don't have self-worth, we often think, if I don't do this particular thing, I am not worthy of feeling this way or having this thing.
When I see that a lot, as I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, about being very prevalent in our culture, and it's so important because if we don't have it, then we just don't know who we are. Kind of like what I mentioned in my, you know, you don't know who you are, what your strengths are. And specifically, we're here created to serve Allah. And then if we're feeling this idea that I'm not, you know, enough, I'm not good enough, then how are we going to even serve someone when, you know, another human being or even God, when we're being led carelessly from one place to another? We're just like, oh yeah, I believe this today. Okay, I'm going to believe that tomorrow because this person I care about also believes that. So we really have to be grounded in Allah, in ourselves, and be able to take a stand for important things. And, you know, if we're not confident in ourselves and our abilities, then we're not going to be able to raise our children well either. So they really feel all those things. But we're talking about self-worth, and that's, you know, really important to have that. But I think there are very specific pitfalls that can come into it. When we're talking about this idea when we don't have self-worth, the idea that I need to be doing something specific to feel adequate, it is so scary. Because that idea is coming from your surrounding. It's not coming from anything else. It's coming from whoever's around you, whoever you're looking up to, whether it's in person or in social media, that we're getting our cues on how to live our life based on other people. And that is so dangerous. This is when we really start to fall into, you know, trends, societal trends, you know, or falling into emotional blackmail even, when we're just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do something that makes the other person feel good. Those outward experiences and people we surround ourselves with, things that we're watching on TV, social, you know, movies or whatever, they really influence our own perception of ourselves. And so we end up falling under this idea that I'm just not good enough, underappreciation of ourselves. And that can be a really dangerous road to track on, because then you might be going into this, questioning your own existence as Allah has created you. So we have to be really careful on those pathways over there.
Yeah, for sure, about the voices that we let into our heads. Because I know that my younger self definitely struggled with other people expecting certain things of me and me wanting to do something different. And I still subconsciously feel the need to, like a slight need to match up. And then I remind myself, no, you don't need to match up, because it's okay. It's okay to have something different that you're doing. So let's speak about the pitfalls of self-worth. So a turn that self-worth could take.
Well, we're talking about self-confidence. We're talking about all those things. I am awesome. Allah created me perfectly. That's exactly what Shaitan did. He said, I'm awesome. I'm created perfectly. I don't need to listen to anyone. I know exactly what I want to do in my life. I mean, maybe he didn't say those same words, but I think it fell into that same thinking of arrogance. He had achieved such a high level of spirituality, but it didn't enter into his heart. And he was the one who thought that he was better than others. So yeah, arrogance can be a really huge pitfall to watch out for self-worth.
It often is when Allah is not in the picture so much, I feel, because the difference between arrogance and an Islamic sense of self-worth is knowing and understanding fully that everything that we have is from Allah. And if we're doing something beneficial, if someone's impacted by our work, that is a blessing from Allah. Allah allowed that to happen. It wasn't me or anything that I did. Everything I have is not something I did. It's a gift from Allah.
That's wonderful. I think we should probably print that and kind of attach it on the board somewhere, because we have to remember that it is from Allah. There's nothing I have contributed to make this happen. So then we're talking about self-worth, and obviously some of us have achieved this very idealistic level, and most of us probably haven't. So now let's talk about some practical tips to cultivate self-worthiness in ourselves.
To start with, I would say finding peace with who you are and your strengths and weaknesses. So that requires quite a bit of self-study and self-awareness on things such as how you work, what is natural to